I'm sure a lot of you, just like myself, Thursday night sat in front of your televisions in your living room or wherever and watched game one of the 2014 NBA Finals. I'm sure you did. I know I did. And I'm glad I did. And as the game kept going on, the big story, the big narrative, if you will, was about the air conditioning going out in San Antonio's arena. How in the hell do you have air conditioning go out and have no way to fix it during the game? How ridiculous and stupid does that make the people in charge of that arena look? This is about as embarrassing as the lights going out in the Superdome a couple of years ago for the freaking Super Bowl. How in the hell can you let that happen on the biggest stage of your sport? It's ridiculous. But as the game finished up Thursday night, you had this. I knew it was going to be the big story about LeBron cramping up, trying to play through it, then he didn't, then trying to play through it, and then he didn't, and then him and Eric Spoelstra kind of said, no mas, that's enough, it is what it is. I didn't bother posting about it Thursday night. I didn't bother reading or watching any news about it because I knew the shitstorm that was going to come, and I figured I'll just catch up on it the next morning and have a good laugh about it. And God, did I ever. Now, of course, I took the chance to make a couple of my own little snarky comments because that's what I do. That's what I do. But what I really knew was going to happen was that one organization was going to kick it into overdrive here. And it was going to be LeBron's leg cramps equals ESPN's menstrual cramps. And over the past couple of days, Friday and then today here, Saturday, I spent a lot of time on the highway driving back and forth throughout Virginia, D.C., what have you. Had a lot of time to listen to ESPN radio, which is something I usually don't like to do, which is just like my opinion on watching ESPN's television network. It's something I don't like to do a whole lot unless I absolutely have to watch a certain game or whatever, because I knew what was going to come. And over the past 2 days, it has been nothing, and I emphasize again, nothing, but talking point after talking point, all defending LeBron, talking about how cramps are debilitating, talking about LeBron can't be a quitter, he's a world champion, talking about how he's the best player and the best athlete in the game today. And for that, he shouldn't be criticized and he should be allowed some slack. Especially once Friday afternoon came and somebody realized the whole thing about a book that had been written talking about how Michael Jordan had asked out of Game 4 of the 1997 NBA Finals at one point in time against the Jazz because of stomach cramps. Oh my God, that was a monster that got a life of its own once that got out there. You had all the complaints talking about, well, this is one of these things, man. These were horrible conditions to play in. It could have happened to anybody. It just happened to LeBron. The complaints from ESPN and their puppets and their talking heads about the ridiculousness of the narrative of people questioning LeBron's toughness, both mental and physical, and questioning his desire and his winning attitude, and questioning whether or not he was a quitter. And all of this, they just called it the most ridiculous narrative that they had ever heard of. They were talking about how if you didn't buy into what they were saying, that was trolling. They said it was like Scott Van Pelt in particular, known for being stupid himself quite frequently, not to the level of, let's say, a Colin Cowherd, but still talking about how the stupid runs deep and da-da-da. And that ESPN, and this is something I heard consistently over the past 2 days, had no narrative of their own to set. They had no talking points that were given to all of their hosts and personalities, and they had no agenda. And what I say to all of that is bullshit. As the title of the video says, LeBron's leg cramp equals ESPN's menstrual cramps. My God. I thought they were going to kick it into overdrive. I thought they were going to kick it into hyperdrive, and dare I say, kick it into ludicrous speed mode when it came to the defense of LeBron. But even I couldn't have imagined or fathomed the ridiculous levels to which they would ensure that they did just that. It was overwhelming. And like I said, to most of what ESPN said, as I so often do when it comes to the mothership, as Dan Patrick calls them, say bullshit. Cramps are debilitating. Yes, I was somebody for years. I was a sprinter / distance runner. I had my fair share of cramps. And yes, they could be debilitating. There's no question about it, especially if you got one in your calf or in your hamstring. Try getting even like a side stitch in the middle of an 8, 10, or 13-mile run. But you didn't stop. You didn't stop doing it. And furthermore, LeBron has a history of cramps. And yet, game 1 of the NBA Finals, he falls victim to it again. Where is the questioning of LeBron's professionalism in the sense of failing to prepare is preparing to fail? And if you sit there and say, well, maybe he did prepare and it was just the tough conditions and that induced the cramping. Well, if you know you have a history of it and your body type that you have, your size, your lean muscle mass makes you a little more predisposition to potentially have a cramping issue, you would think you would do more from a health and nutrition and hydration standpoint to prevent this from occurring. And clearly LeBron James doesn't. So why can't we question him for his clear and utter lack of failing to prepare? Because like I said, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And this whole notion of, well, these were ridiculously tough and harsh conditions. What the hell would LeBron James have done in the 80s or in the old days if he'd had to play in the freaking Boston Garden where it was 90 to 100 degrees consistently through every game, every time? It just speaks, if anything, to the pussification of society as a whole today, a pussification of the athletes in today's sports, regardless NFL, NBA, doesn't matter. He's sitting there and getting gassed and cramping up in these conditions one time. How is this any different than going outside and playing a pickup basketball game all fucking day, or going out and playing with your friends on the street all freaking day during the summer when it's 95 to 100 degrees? That makes absolutely no sense. What a piss-poor, pathetic excuse to attempt to try and shift the blame to the air conditioning not working for LeBron James cramping up. You know, and this whole thing of he's a champion, so he can't be a quitter. Well, shit. Kobe Bryant had won 3 NBA championships, and then I saw the 2004 finals. It looked like both him and Shaq quit. And then the 2008 finals against the Boston Celtics. Kobe, 3-time NBA champion. 4 appearances in the NBA Finals. And to me, he clearly mentally conceded and quit in that series. So this whole notion that a champion can't quit is bullshit of the highest order. Remember, ESPN, you did a 30 for 30 special about Roberto Duran called No Mas, a champion that quit. One of the most ridiculous notions I've ever heard of, especially considering, in my opinion, LeBron does have a history of mentally conceding. He definitely does. I look back at the 2007 NBA Finals. I look back at the 2011 NBA Finals. He has a history in the past of mentally conceding, in my opinion. Now, clearly, he didn't do it over the past couple of years because I felt like LeBron finally learned what it meant to be the man. He finally learned what it took to be a champion and as a result became a champion. But let's not get it twisted here. Isn't this the same guy, I believe, along with Dwayne Wade, that a few years ago was giving Dirk Nowitzki shit for maybe missing a freaking NBA Finals game because he was sick? So LeBron, it's okay for him to question somebody else and their toughness, but if we dare question LeBron's toughness, oh God, it's a fucking problem. Now, furthermore, we're talking about this whole thing about the ridiculousness of the narrative. How can ESPN fucking complain about the ridiculousness of the narrative when for years they fostered this environment that created this ridiculous narrative and nurtured it perhaps more than anybody else, knowing damn good and well that if this was 2007 or 2011 when this happened, they would be blasting LeBron 6 ways from fucking Sunday, period. No question about it. How are you going to sit there and bitch about something that you helped create? How are you going to bitch about something that you helped foster? Oh, and by the way, ESPN, when you sit there and brought up that Michael Jordan example, you left out 2 key components to this and where it doesn't compare to what happened with LeBron in game number 1. Michael Jordan asked out of a game. A lot of players, I think every NBA player at some point in time asked out of a game. But Michael Jordan still finished game 4. That's a clear distinction to make. And I notice how throughout my 2 days of listening to your network at great lengths and sadly at great nauseum, not a single individual happened to reference what happened in game 5 when the series was tied at 2 and they were playing in the Delta Center and Michael Jordan had food poisoning and he put up 38 points in a critical must-have game 5 on the road and his Bulls won. you happen to fail to mention that. You tried to throw out a talking point to creatively fit your agenda, and you left out the most important thing, the details. Because again, ESPN, the devil is always in the details, isn't it? And again, you're bitching and complaining about a ridiculous narrative that you fostered and you helped create, knowing damn good and well if this happened 3 or 4 years ago, you would be all over this like flies on horse shit, maggots on a dead body, white on rice, wet pants on a cheerleader, whatever the fucking case might be. And to sit there and all these hosts over the past couple of days on ESPN saying that ESPN didn't give them any talking points, and there's no agenda here. There's no hidden narrative or hidden story that they're trying to tell here. Bullshit! ESPN, when they want to be, can give an athlete or a team the Fox News Republican conservative treatment or the MSNBC Democrat liberal treatment, and there is no question about this. Look at the creative lengths they go to heap nothing but praise on Peyton Manning, for example, when he wins. But when his team loses or if he plays poorly, they find a way to spin and deflect any and all possible blame away from him. Why? Because ESPN knows goddamn good and well that at the end of the day, at this point in time, with a LeBron James, it is best for their brand to combat this type of talk because they have to protect their monetary investment, which is significant and substantial as part of the Disney family with ABC. They have to protect their sister network and their investment. They have to protect the ESPN investment, the Disney family investment as a whole. They have to protect that. So they have to protect the NBA, which means protecting the marquee player in the NBA against these type of allegations and charges and talking points and narratives. ESPN knows this. For people like Scott Van Pelt and Mark Schlereth and so on and so forth and Colin Cowherd to say there's no narrative, get the fuck out of here. Of course there's a goddamn narrative. And if we were in charge in your position, we'd probably do the same damn thing. But to sit there and say, you're not spinning this in a certain direction or in a certain direction, like I said, this is like if there's something that President Obama is trying to do. You watch an MSNBC, you're going to see the same talking points discussed in the entire show or throughout the entire day of programming, primarily defending President Obama. You'll occasionally bring somebody in to present some type of opposing viewpoint just to quickly smack it away. And the same fucking thing that happens on Fox News, period. If Obama wanted to do something or a Democrat wanted to do something, Fox News is going to have the same talking points on Fox and Friends in the Morning as they do with freaking O'Reilly or Hannity or Megyn Kelly or whoever the fuck. You're going to hear the same things talked about over and over and over and over and over again. Occasionally bring on a Democrat just so that way you can smack it away to again sell your side of the story, to push your agenda, to hit on your key talking points. And that's exactly what this reminded me. And I knew this was going to happen. I knew once LeBron got these leg cramps and if it kept him from finishing the game and if the Spurs won game one, instead of talking about the Spurs and how well they played or talking about this or talking about that or focusing on game two, that this bullshit was going to be used as an attempt by ESPN to protect the NBA and in particular King James brand and also try and ramp up some more interest into freaking game two in order to do what? Get more ratings, which equals more fucking money. I see right through ESPN's bullshit, and I hope a lot of you do too. And this is why I don't watch ESPN very much, because of this MSNBC, Fox News type of treatment that they give to certain athletes and certain freaking teams. It is goddamn ridiculous. You know, the whole thing is I understand. If LeBron couldn't go, he couldn't go. And frankly, from Coach Eric Spoelstra's standpoint, if it got to the point where the best player in the league was going to be more of a hindrance than a help, you have to do the thing that's in the best interest of the team and not play him. I do knock LeBron, though, for failing to prepare because he was preparing himself to fail. I dispute this notion that this is a bullshit narrative because, again, LeBron does have a history of mentally conceding, in my opinion. We can't question him or knock him for this, even though a few years ago, I do believe it was him and Dwayne Wade that were knocked Dirk Nowitzki for missing a game because he was sick. You know, and to compare him again to Jordan, this is like the pro-LeBron crowd trying to sit there and say, well, you know, Jordan wasn't Superman, Jordan wasn't Superman. Well, you know what? Michael Jordan made sure when he did, and when he could, he made sure he finished NBA Finals games. ESPN has a pathetically predictable pattern with certain individuals and teams of doing this type of crap. And I'm not surprised that they did it again. Let's see what happens the rest of the series. It should be interesting. Can't wait to see what other bullshit ESPN has in store for us.